Hello, this is DrPaulCottrell, and I'm covering the news about the Iranian drone launch towards Israel. As of right now, which is New York time about 6:52, there is news coming out that Israel is starting to intercept. Now, this news is coming through Al Jazeera. Sirens being heard in Israel, and Iranian missiles are and drones are intercepted. Okay, so we'll, how many are getting through? Who knows? But please, as we follow this news, please make sure that you subscribe to all my channels. I have 3 channels on YouTube: Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. The links are in the description of this video and all my videos. So please make sure you subscribe to all my channels. In addition, please follow me on Twitter and in GETTR. And also, if you would like to help support my news coverage, please donate on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee at the bottom of the homepage of my website. Or you can also be a paid member to my Patreon channel that helps to support my news coverage. The link is in the description for signing up as a paid member for Brighteon. With that, let's listen to what Al Jazeera has to say.
Of drones coming in anywhere, reports indicated from 2 to 10 hours. So it still looks like it's going to be a long night ahead, as the Israelis say they have defense mechanisms that are stockpiled and they are ready to go and they are prepared for any type of scenario.
Okay, Hamda, we'll let you go for now. Thank you. We'll bring in Rory Challenge from occupied East Jerusalem. And Rory, can you confirm? Just tell us what's happening there, because we're hearing air raid sirens go off in Jerusalem and explosions above the skies. What do you see and hear?
Yeah, exactly that. For the last 10 minutes or so, we've been looking out from the balcony here across the Jerusalem skyline. We've seen a succession of air defense interceptors going up from various points around the city to meet targets in the sky. And then still going on, there's a sort of dull thud going around the skyline across the city, as well as interceptions that are made. About 10 minutes ago as well, the air raid siren went off. And now the police seem to be going around on the streets in their cars with an announcement going out, which we assume is telling people to go to their nearest air raid shelters as quickly as they can. So this is the situation in Jerusalem at the moment. It seems to be calmer right now, but there could well be another barrage of drones coming in and on the way. We are seeing basically Israel under attack from Iranian projectiles right now.
What sorts of advice or preparations has the government, or, I mean, you were just mentioning the police telling people to go to shelters. What more have they told people to do?
Well, I mean, they've basically been telling people not to panic. They have been issuing various restrictions on movements and things like that. They have told people that they shouldn't be gathering anywhere in Israel in groups larger than 1,000 people. They've been saying that schools, universities, daycare, etc., is going to be closed for the next 2 days. And they have been saying to everyone to listen to the advice for when the air raid sirens go off, to go to those shelters and to take shelter for as long as is necessary. But the advice has been just to sort of take it calmly and not to get too worried about things. The military has been telling people that the air defense systems that Israel have, that's the Iron Dome, that is David Sling, and that's Arrow 2 and 3, are very capable systems designed to deal with multiple types of threats. It's a layered air defense system to deal with rockets, to deal with missiles, ballistic, to deal with missiles that are cruise missiles, and to deal with drones as well. And that is what we're likely to be seeing over the next few minutes and hours as these different waves of projectiles come in. The big test, of course, is for this layered air defense system. Can it cope with an assault of this magnitude, because this is not something that Israel has faced before on this scale. It has its assistance coming from the United States, providing overwatch, providing electronic jamming, electronic warfare, and shooting down projectiles before they even get to Israeli airspace. But this, as I say, is a test that Israel has not faced before on this scale.
Rory, it's
what is interesting, because in the previous broadcast, I didn't know if a drone coming in slower and lower would fly underneath the Iron Dome. It seems as though it's not. So the Iron Dome does have some capability against drone strikes. So we'll see. Doesn't seem like there's any damage yet, but other reports were saying there were hundreds of drones, not dozens of drones, and that there were multiple waves. So who knows what's going on. So I'm going to continue with this, but I just want to do a commercial break here for PNN. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the ashwagandha root. This helps to control your blood glucose levels and brings down that inflammatory response from high glucose levels. Also, get resveratrol. It is an antioxidant and it helps to senesce cells. It's part of an anti-aging protocol. In addition, also get the vitamin C that's on my store. It is an antioxidant, but it also helps with the dermal layer cross-linking with collagen to improve your skin. So please take vitamin C every day. If you're not feeling well, take a double dose of it. Clarity factor, which helps to get rid of the brain fog and helps keep those dendrites firing, those dendritic connections firing with the neurotransmitters. This will help you to maintain your mental acuity. So please take this every day. I take this twice a day. And lastly, vitamin D3, very important for calcium absorption, but also it helps to get rid of infected cells through apoptosis. It's a cofactor for gene expression. If you're low on vitamin D3, you're not gene expressing at the levels that you should be in your cells. So please make sure that you take vitamin D3. I take 10,000 units of this, which is 2 soft gels. I take 1 soft gel in the morning and 1 soft gel in the evening.
Taken over from Doreen, so you're with me now for the next few hours. For those viewers, Rory, who are just joining Al Jazeera now to take in this developing story as it's happening, talk us through again what you're hearing from Israeli Army Radio, from officials there about the incoming drones, because we're hearing, as you've been telling us throughout the evening, it may also include different air threats like missiles as well.
Yeah, so the first that we heard was that a barrage of dozens of Iranian drones have been launched from Iranian territory. Now, what we know about the Iranian drones in use are that they are the Shahed 136. Now, this has been used extensively by the Russians, bought from the Iranians. It's been used by the Russians in Ukraine. The 136 has a warhead of 50 kilograms, so it's not huge, but it's certainly not insignificant. It can do quite some damage when it actually reaches its target. But the way that these drones are used as they're used as a kind of saturation tool. You might not get many through, but it will exhaust the air defense systems, certainly of the Ukrainians' air defenses, which are nowhere near as capable as the Israeli ones. And that's when the Russians, certainly in Ukraine, use their cruise missiles and their ballistic missiles. Once the drones have exhausted air defense, then those missiles can hit their targets more easily. This is a different situation because Israel's air defenses are much, much more sophisticated and more numerous in number. They've got a net that's been built up over many years, layering different types of air defense on top of each other. But we understand that there are cruise missiles on the way as well, and also that Hezbollah in Lebanon has been launching rockets into the Golan Heights, that the Houthis have been launching drones too. So this is a multi-phase, multi-pronged attack on Israel with numerous different types of aerial threats, and that's the big test.
Yeah, Rory, and tell us a bit more for those viewers who are just joining us now about the military and air defense preparations that Israel's been making over the last week or so, because Israel knew this was coming, and Israel, of course, is very technologically advanced in its air defense capabilities, as you've been telling us.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, Israel knew something was coming. They didn't know exactly what it was going to be, so they had to prepare for whatever Iran chose to throw at it. And so in the immediate days after that strike on the Iranian complex in Damascus that killed several Iranian generals and high-ranking military people, the Israelis basically put in place numerous preparations. So they cancelled leave for all combat units, basically telling any ground force that was in its position at that time that they couldn't go home, they couldn't leave their post, they could be redeployed to wherever they needed to be, but going on leave, absolutely not. So that indicated that the Israelis wanted to be prepared not just for something coming from the sky, but also for any kind of incursion on the ground as well, which I assume they probably meant was going to be most likely coming from Hezbollah in the north across the Lebanese border. They also called up air defense reservists, of course, for what we're seeing playing out at the moment, because that was always going to be the most likely thing. But then there was also the threat to Israeli diplomatic compounds and embassies and consulates around the world. So they were put on high alert too. And then there was jamming. So they did jamming of GPS systems around the country. We've seen a lot more of that going on over the last few hours as well. Electronic warfare being used in a fairly major way to try and disrupt the drones as they come in. So these are the kind of things that Israel puts into place to try and prepare.
We are literally seeing the new battlefield emerging through the Ukrainian-Russian war and this whole Israel-Hamas-Iranian war that is emerging, and how it may be what is used with a war between the United States and China, maybe a little bit larger scale in terms of quantity of drones and maybe even the size of the drones, that naval battles may actually be drone battles.
But then, of course, the Americans came to liaise. We had the general of Central Command. I think you might be able to see there's another interceptor going off. It's very far in the distance there, so maybe it's too far away for the camera to pick out. But there was another interceptor going up there, so obviously the threats are still coming in. Yeah, as I was saying, the Americans were here. The general in charge of the U.S. Central Command was here to liaise with the Israelis and build up their kind of intelligence picture of what might be coming. So these are the kind of things that Israel has been doing, and the government has been insisting to people that the country is as prepared as it could possibly be, but warning them that air defense is not infallible, however competent it is. Something might well get through.
All right, Rory Challenge there, live for us in Ottawa.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and help support my work, help support my news coverage by purchasing the health products that I offer. I offer very high quality supplements and deodorants and soaps and toothpaste. So please go to my store and help support my work. For example, the structural nano silver soaps that I have it in peppermint, very high quality. Charcoal tea tree. I also have it in lemongrass. And this one's lavender, which is a very popular one. And this one is oatmeal spice, which is actually the soap that I'm currently using. So please, go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver soaps. It helps to neutralize pathogens. It's a very high quality soap because of the structural nano silver. In addition, to lower that inflammation, like I said, to help boost up your immune system and slow down that aging process, and to get your body into homeostasis, take my turmeric that's on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Link is in the description of this video. take the turmeric, it'll bring down that inflammation, and it's also an antioxidant. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Link is in the description to help support my work.
So Rory will no doubt come back to you a little bit later. For our viewers just joining us here, it's just gone past 2300 GMT. We're bringing you continuing coverage of Iran launching its retaliatory attack on Israel. Iran's Revolutionary Guards have launched its first wave of missiles, as you've been seeing on our screens. Air raid sirens, as Rory was telling us there in occupied East Jerusalem, are sounding, and rockets have been intercepted above cities across Israel, including Tel Aviv and West Jerusalem. A senior US official has told the American media they believe as many as 400 to 500 drones and missiles will be launched towards Israeli territory. Well, Tehran says it's a response to Israel's bombing of the Iranian consulate in Damascus in Syria. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is meeting with his war cabinet in Tel Aviv. Israeli combat planes are also in the air now as we speak. Israeli officials say the response will be firm and clear and have called Iran's attack a severe and dangerous escalation. Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden has rushed back to Washington. He's currently monitoring the situation.
I mean, look, he's rushing back to Washington, but he can barely walk. Amazing. I'll tell you that Biden is one of the worst presidents of my lifetime, and most likely the whole lifetime of the founding of the nation of the United States.
White House. Well, Jordan, Iraq, Lebanon, and Israel have all temporarily closed their airspace. Here's a diagram of all that. It comes after early reports of interference with the GPS navigation systems. Well, we had a team of correspondents covering the story. We start in Tehran with Dorsa Jabari. Dorsa, so we've just had this statement on X, haven't we, by the Iranians saying this is their only response and consider the matter concluded, and they don't want a widening of the conflict. What should we make of that response, and how significant is it, Dorsa?
Well, Darren, I think this is a explanation being provided by Iran's permanent mission to the world, invoking Article 51 of the UN Charter, which states the country's right to self-defense, but also saying that the matter is concluded, hinting that should there be any further
think about this for a second. October 7th was an attack on Israel by Hamas, supported by Iran. Israel starts kicking the shit out of Gaza because they want to root out Hamas. And Israel goes after the commanders that help Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. And then Iran thinks that, well, now we have to, retaliate. You guys are the ones that started the war. Now, I'm sure that people that are watching that don't agree with my perspective that this is a very biblical thing, they're going to say it's all the fault of the Israelis, or it's all some sort of Zionist fault and blah, blah, blah. You know what? I don't subscribe to that line of thinking, and, so what, but we can agree to disagree. But Iran, thinking that they're all lily white and that Israel, needs to, be taught a lesson. You know what? What's going on between the battle between Jacob and Esau, the whole soul root thing that I've been saying for months now, is playing out in the news. Israel is playing hardball. Same thing. Iran plays hardball. And you know what? You gotta let Esau and Jacob battle it out. And in the end, Esau dies by the sword. So trust me on this. Jacob is going to prevail.
The part of the Israelis that it would come, and also warning the United States that they should stay away from this conflict, that this is between Israel and Iran, and that they should not get involved. So a few things to take away from this post on X by Iran's permanent mission is certainly from what we've been hearing over the past few hours. First, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, who are carrying out this attack against Israel, calling this mission, a true promise, that is the name of it. They say that they've launched drones and missiles towards Israel as a result of their aggression, and that this decision was made by Iran's Supreme National Security Council, which convened shortly after that attack on Iran's consulate section in Damascus that killed 7 Revolutionary Guard officials, including Brigadier General Mohammad Reza Zahedi, one of the inner officials within the country's establishment. But of course, this wasn't the only incident that led to what we're seeing tonight, that attack on Iran's consulate section, which Iranians called an act of war by Israel, a declaration of war, but also an attack on Iran's soil. The Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei had warned repeatedly over the past 12 days since that attack took place that Iran will respond decisively and that it will be Israel will be made to regret what they did. Israeli forces have carried out strikes in Syria since October 7th repeatedly and killed 18 Revolutionary Guard officials since then alone. But of course, that is not the only time that they've targeted senior Iranian officials. We saw a number of attacks on nuclear scientists in Iran over the past decade. With the last one, high-ranking Fakhrizadeh was assassinated in Tehran, and Iran blamed Israel for that attack. But Iran didn't directly target Israel until tonight. This is the first time in the country's history that Iran has taken such a decisive action, but it seems to be fairly limited. First of all, there was communication back and forth between Iran and the United States, Iranian officials making it very clear that they don't want a full-on confrontation with the West, and that what they're going to do is have a precise and limited action against Israel, and that the Iranian foreign minister just tonight posted on his X account that the United States had sufficient warning in advance about what was to come. So there's no surprises about what is happening tonight.
Daughter, there was a lot of speculation, wasn't there? We were talking to you earlier, particularly coming in from the United States, about when and where the retaliation would take place. But Iran remained pretty silent about how they would respond. So was this specific kind of attack expected? Because they've even given it a name, haven't they, for the operation?
Yes, True Promise is the name. And they did say that this was coming.
So explosions being heard throughout Israel. Now, is that interception or is it hitting the ground? You know, who knows at this moment in time?
Without specifying exactly what kind of an attack would take place. It was noteworthy over the past 10 days or so. We didn't hear a lot from the high-ranking officials about what kind of a response specifically Iran would have for Israel. There was generic statements made, but there was very little comments made by, for example, the head of the Revolutionary Guard or the defense minister or the head of Iran's Revolutionary Guard Aerospace Division, who was in charge of the events happening tonight. What is clear is that Iran was very careful about what they were going to do. This was a very much calculated response because took them so long to actually do. Many people here were doubting whether or not there will be a direct response from Iran. Many believe that the Iranian proxies in the region, in Iraq, in Lebanon, in Yemen, would be the ones to respond to Israel. But Iran has decided now this is a very critical point in this country's history and relationship, or lack thereof, with one of its longest adversaries, that is Israel. And so they felt that this was a necessary step to not only show the strength of the Iranian military machine, but also as a deterrence for Israel to further prevent these kinds of attack against Iranian officials.
I don't think that the military apparatus in Iran is as strong as it's being projected in the news. In addition, I believe that the actual theocracy in Iran is almost near a tipping point where it may lose power. So attacking Iran may actually make Iran more stable in the long run.
Daughter, as we're talking to you, we're seeing some of those earlier pictures of those explosions being heard throughout Israel, some of the missiles and drones being intercepted. So for our viewers who are just joining us, that's what they're seeing in those boxes outside of you and I talking. And for the viewers who are just joining us now, remind them why Iran had to respond in this way, because Iran saw the Damascus attack as a direct assault on its sovereignty, on its territory.
Okay, so this news announcement from Wall Street Journal, the U.S. has shot down a number of Iranian drones that were heading toward Israel. Okay, so heading towards Israel. So that sounds like they shot it down, perhaps in Iraq.
They have no option but to respond in this way.
Well, many here believe that they didn't. If they didn't directly respond to Israel, this kind of behavior by Netanyahu's government and the military in Israel will continue. There's been targeted assassinations of Iranian officials, not only in Syria, Lebanon, but also inside Iran. There's been a number of nuclear scientists who have been assassinated inside the country, and Iran has repeatedly blamed Israel for them. Now, this is something that the Iranians have never considered until now, but it seems that an attack in Damascus was the final straw for the Iranians. And of course, we have to remember that this country's history, the long war that it was engaged in with Iraq, 8 years after the revolution happened here in 1979. The war began in 1980 and lasted until 1988. It was devastating for this country. And the supreme leader that is now in power since 1989, he's the commander-in-chief of the country's armed forces, had a very difficult decision to make. This was not something that was taken lightly by Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, because to engage with direct conflict with Israel is something nobody here wants or wanted. But I think the officials felt there was no other option. If they use proxies in the region, they will be made to.
Israel knows, the United States knows, and Iran knows that if this gets escalated between Israel and Iran, Iran's going to lose. And the whole theocracy between the Shia and the Sunni and all this stuff is going to radically change. And this is why I keep on saying that there are things that are happening in the news, in the world, especially in the Middle East, that is moving towards the Temple Mount to be rebuilt, the Dome of the Rock to be taken down, the red heifers to be sacrificed, the borders of Israel to be larger to biblical time boundaries, and that there will be a two-state solution where the Palestinians are going to be in Gaza. Not the West Bank, not in Jerusalem, and that there will be world peace. But to get to that point, there will be birth pains that we're seeing right now. Iran knows this. They're not that strong. They're not strong internally because there is a people that is not aligned. There are people within their country that are not aligned with the theocracy. And they're not aligned with this whole new era that's starting to emerge. So for their survival, they know they can't escalate. But just get the job done and we are going to have longer lasting peace.
Week, because they have said that they don't have direct say of what those proxies do. So they felt this was a time for them to step up. There has been rhetoric for the past 45 years in Iran between what the Iranians feel Israel is doing in Palestine and how Iran will respond to the aggression that has continued against the Palestinian population. So I have to tell you, these scenes that we're seeing tonight are extremely unprecedented. I think many Iranians, when they wake up on Sunday morning, will be utterly shocked that Iran has actually taken this decision to launch direct attacks from Iran towards Israel. These are threats that we've heard over and over again over the past 4 decades, but to see the scenes over Jerusalem and Tel Aviv are something many here never imagined they would see.
All right, Joseph Jabari there reporting live for us from the Iranian capital, Tehran, as we're looking at some of those earlier pictures of those interceptions.
Please go to my store and get the probiotic. This is very important to repopulate your gut biome. It has been shown that people that have a disturbed gut biome get sick, potentially even exacerbate or extend what happened to them during the last crisis, the pathogenic crisis. So make sure that you repopulate your gut biome, because health is correlated to a good gut biome. So please go to my store, get the powder or the tablets, take it every day. I take the powder every day. You can mix it with food or you can mix it with water. I put it in hummus, not Hamas, hummus. All right. So please get the powder and take it every day, and it'll help to improve your gut biome. You're going to have better stools, more consistent stools. You're going to have better communication between your gut and your liver, and your gut and your brain. So go to the store and get the probiotics that I offer them. The-studio-reykjavik.com. Link is in the description.
We understand there have been explosions and interceptions throughout across Israel against these Iranian missiles and drones as they're being intercepted. So those are some of the pictures you're seeing on your screen now. Let's bring in Sean Bell. He's a military analyst and a retired Air Vice Marshal. He joins us live from Birmingham in the UK. Sean, thank you very much for being with us. Give us first your response then to this retaliation we're seeing tonight against Israel. And how surprised are you that Iran used a direct attack rather than its proxies? Because that's significant, isn't it?
Yeah, good evening, Darren. It is significant. I don't think many people are surprised. I think, as your correspondents quite rightly have been saying, when Israel chose to mount an attack onto the consulate in Syria, the Iranian consulate, on the 1st of April, killing 13 people, including a senior military commander, that they must have expected there was going to be some sort of retaliation. I think what's been interesting, first of all, is how long it's taken for Iran to find the right response. And also, I think Iran finds itself on the horns of a dilemma. As many of your previous correspondents have been saying, Iran does not want to get involved in a war, but it has to protect its reputation, and it certainly doesn't want to see any retaliation as being an excuse for Israel and potentially America to start attacking Iran, particularly its nuclear weapons program, because ultimately it's not if, it's when Iran finally develops nuclear weapons, that will be the ultimate deterrent for nations like Israel and the US, and it will not want to see those get lost. So I don't think anybody's surprised at the level of the attack. I think what we're all looking for at the moment is whether or not they are military targets, maybe government targets, whether there have been telephone warnings to advise to try and minimize the number of casualties, and whether or not actually this is a single wave of attacks. I think what's other thing you're seeing on your pictures, I would remind viewers that at the moment, the Iron Dome and systems like that are only really useful against drones. And it does seem to be that Iran has coordinated a series of attacks, potentially even Hamas firing rockets, but certainly Hezbollah firing rockets, and with the Houthis also attacking in the Red Sea. This is a very, very well coordinated series of attacks by Iran, trying to make a clear point to Israel.
Yeah, Sean, let's just stick with the issue of the drones. What do we know then about these Shahed drones that are now coming in over Israel and being intercepted? I mean, their range, their speed, their warheads, their payloads, etc. Because we know that they've also been used by the Russians in the war with Ukraine.
Yes, I mean, from a military perspective, they're not that capable. I mean, they're about the same speed as a car. They do about up to 140 miles an hour. They have got long endurance. They can travel hundreds of miles, and they can be quite carefully programmed. They've got a relatively small warhead, 50 kilograms, but that will still do a lot of damage on the ground. But they're really more terror weapons than anything else. The huge advantage is that these things are probably only about $20,000 a time, whereas most of the cruise and ballistic missiles, you're talking about $1 million, $2 million a time. So the great thing about drones is that you can afford quantity, and sort of quantity has a quality all of its own, because you can actually start to deluge their defenses, and that's what these weapons try to do.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver Health Max 14 or Health Max 35. You take a teaspoon of it a day, swish it in your mouth, gargle, swallow. I take it every day. If you're not feeling well, take a tablespoon of it or 2 a day, swish in your mouth, gargle, and swallow. All right, and that will neutralize pathogens. Now, it's important to also get the applicator so you can pour the liquid into these different little bottles so you can carry it around to your work, or when you go shopping or whatever. You'll get a spritzer, you'll get a dropper, and then you'll also get a nasal spray. Just fill the bottle with the liquid, take it in your bag, and you can spray surfaces, or spray it in the back of your mouth or on your hands, or use a dropper to put it in your mouth, or you can use the nasal spray. Great way to carry it instead of carrying a big bottle to work or in your bag or whatever. This is very portable. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Health Max 14 or the Health Max 35 or the silver solution, and get the applicator set. It's a great buy. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Link is in the description.
A terror weapon more than actually physically be able to do material damage, but they are, as you said, very widely being used out by the Russians against Ukraine targets, because it forces air defense systems to operate against them, sucking up expensive air defense missiles, and therefore creating potentially the pathway through for cruise missiles and the ballistic missiles, which are much more expensive, travel a lot faster, a lot more capable, but obviously are in limited supplies and very expensive.
Yeah, let's just get a final thought from you, Sean, and stay with that issue of the Iranian strategy here. You were saying it's to overwhelm, is it to overwhelm Israel's multi-layered air defense system, and by using other aerial assets like missiles, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, in effect, the attack itself is multi-layered as well?
The attack will certainly be multi-layered. I mean, there's no point firing one missile and having it shot down out of the sky by the very high-tech Israel air defense systems.
It's possible to have multi-layer from Iran, but also coordination with Hezbollah. All right, but the problem is that Israel knocked out their head commander, so that coordination with the Hezbollah group may actually not be very good, and because of that, mistakes can be made. So maybe Iran doesn't want to maybe they told Hezbollah to stand down, but Hezbollah has been launching rockets today. So it's probably a multi-layered approach, including some sort of coordination with Hezbollah. Maybe the commanders, maybe there's surviving commanders that backfilled that loss of leadership within their general class.
Yeah, that Iran was not strong, it wouldn't be seen as a robust response. So it would have to have considered a multi-wave attack, but Iran would have been well aware that most of the drones will get shot down. It's more a question of where the main missile strikes are. But my overwhelming sense of this, though, is that Israel must have known when it attacked that consulate on the 1st of April that they would trigger some sort of response like this. And despite America asking Iran for a measured response, telling them not to respond, Iran probably had no choice. So the real question is, what was Israel seeking to achieve with those attacks on the 1st of April? And is this part of a carefully coordinated plan?
It's really simple. It's a three-front war. It's Hezbollah, it's Hamas, and it's Iran. And if you have commanders helping coordinate with Hezbollah and loosely with Hamas, then why not knock them out? It is you normally knock out command and control if you can. And this is moving towards what I was saying. This is the battle between Esau and Jacob. Jacob's going to win on this. It's going to be bloody. And Israel has its own internal problems that makes things worse for Israel. But this was meant to become a conflict between Israel and Iran. Unconventional warfare, especially nukes with Iran, changes the ball game, and the United States sucks at that ball game.
Made no secret of the fact that having dealt with Hamas, it wanted to deal with Hezbollah next. And this attack by Iran might well give Israel a license to have a go after Hezbollah next.
All right, so Sean Bell, live for us there from Birmingham in the UK. Sean Bell, a military analyst and retired Air Vice Marshal. Thank you very much indeed.
All right, that's my transmission for this video. I'm going to do another video so you can start seeing the series and how it's building up. Please make sure that you're watching these videos and you participate in the chat. We're documenting what is going on because I think this is a moment in history where you're going to see an escalation, and it will change what we call human history. Thank you for listening, and have a nice day or night, depending on where you're listening.